I have been wanting to post this for a while and haven't gotten around to it, but it's the perfect situation for this sub. So I, a 33 female, live at a funeral home owned and run by my dad. I live in the apartment upstairs and do some side work for my dad, but I don't work for the funeral home. Since I live here though, I tend to interact with a lot of people who are here for funeral related things and whatnot. I speak for my dad when I am speaking to someone here, so I'm always nice and helpful. Had a couple crazy people I have dealt with, but nothing like this. This was in mid-March sometime, because it was right at the beginning of the whole pandemic takeover. I had gone to pick up some food for my family around 6 p.m. Unless there is a service, the employees are usually gone, and I believe it was a Sunday as well. So I pull into my parking lot, and as I park, a car drives by me going towards the entrance side. It was a dark SUV, and there are so many people who work here who have similar cars that I couldn't see from that far who it was, but I gave a quick wave thinking it was someone I knew. Bad idea. So the car stops, and the guy gets out. Like I said, I'm used to having to help people and tell them where they can drop things or pick up stuff. So this guy gets out and comes towards my car. I rolled my window down a little, expecting to just say hello and tell him that no one is here working. He comes right over to my window and starts leaning in and peering into my car, which was a red flag already. It was very invasive. I'm glad my doors were locked and I only put it down a little. So this dude basically had his head in my car, and it creeped me out. But before anything else, his eyes scared the crap out of me. He was very, very pale with bright red hair, and his eyes were literally the craziest and scariest eyes I've ever seen. It was chilling. I don't know if he was on drugs or just crazy, but I'm already uncomfortable at this point. So he starts to talk to me and ask me if I work here, blah blah. I tell him no, no one is working, please call tomorrow in the morning and you can speak to someone. Thought that would be it. Not even close. This man came to bring an application to my father to work for the funeral home. He was apparently in it or something, but had studied embalming and also volunteered for the Red Cross. He was talking a mile a minute, and I was so incredibly uncomfortable, but even more so when he started to tell me about how certain embalming techniques he studied included hanging cadavers by their feet and other insane sick stuff. He had absolutely no experience in embalming though. He cornered me in my car for 15 minutes and just rambled. I told him several times, please just call tomorrow morning, I really can't help you. So now I'm sitting here in my car with this insane man outside my car, and I also had food on my seat. He was looking into my car, so he saw it. You would think he would take the hint. At some point I texted my husband and said, come outside now. Thank God he actually saw my text and came out. So he comes up to this guy and he was like, can I help you? So the guy starts cornering my husband also. This guy had absolutely no idea what personal space was, and my husband kept backing up and he would move in closer every time. I took an opportunity to grab the food and get out since he was outside. When I got out, he started telling my husband and I, this virus is going around and there are gonna be bodies piling up. They are gonna need extra help here when there are hundreds of bodies dead. It almost seemed like he was excited at the thought. I went to the stairs and gave my husband a concerned look and motioned for him to come in. This guy made me so extremely nervous, and I didn't want my husband out there any longer, but this guy was almost impossible to walk away from. He did not understand that it was done. So eventually we got away from this freak and got inside. I immediately called my dad to explain what happened and warn him of this guy. I told my dad I had never felt more uncomfortable in my life, and there was something seriously wrong with this dude. I wanted to warn him that he would probably be back the next day. He came back. A couple days later, mid-morning, I'm upstairs in my apartment and there are several employees in the office upstairs. I hear someone ring the doorbell. Once, twice, 3 times. He then proceeded to ring it non-stop for 15 minutes. They assumed it was him and didn't answer. I went out and I was like, what the hell is with the doorbell? They knew it was him apparently because he had called earlier and wanted to talk to my dad, and one of the employees told him we aren't hiring, but he insisted on talking to my dad, so he came by. Then after the doorbell went off for several minutes, the phone started ringing off the hook. Next, he was going around to all the windows and pounding on them relentlessly. I had told them how crazy he was, but I was glad they could now see what I meant, and that I wasn't overreacting. Eventually, my older brother went down with a mask on. Like I said, this was right in the beginning, and people weren't even wearing masks regularly. But this guy had no boundaries. He then cornered my brother the same way, and would not let him leave and end the conversation. We were all just thinking, what the hell is wrong with this guy? My dad did not want to talk to him, but he wouldn't give up. Next day he comes back again, same thing, banging on the windows and ringing the doorbell, calling incessantly. Eventually my dad's secretary answered the phone and put him in his place, and told him if he called again they would call the cops. The best part is, every time he showed up in full top to bottom biker gear, spandex, helmet, knee pads, even though he apparently lived a few streets over. This guy was absolutely nuts. I'm so thankful he has not come back. Psycho-eyed biker dude, let's not meet ever again. When I was 19 or 20, I used to work for a well-known gas station chain. A lot of the time on evening shift 4 to 12, I was alone. Though both cash registers were behind a wall of plexiglass, there was still a 2 to 3 feet opening between them where a sliding door is for the night shift to close to avoid robberies. It was about 5 p.m. and still daylight when this guy came in. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up when he walked in. There was just something about him that just wasn't right. I should also add I'm a female, if my username didn't already give it away. He walked to the back of the store, made it seem like he was looking for something in my coolers and by the back shelves. He never once picked anything up to read or look over, and every now and then he'd look up at me. He'd gradually make his way toward me, but would retreat to the back of the store when someone came in. This went on for about 10 minutes. These two women came in and went to my coolers at the back of the store. I quickly wrote a note on a piece of paper that said, "Please stay with me so I can call the cops." When one of the ladies came to pay, I showed her the note. She nodded and went and told her friend. I had my eye on this creepy guy while trying to keep from completely panicking. One of the ladies leaves the store, the other lingers around the store. She looks outside and sees something, then leaves. Immediately after she left, and I was about to hit call, the creepy guy rushes up to the counter. He looks out the glass door as he's 2 feet from me, then bolts. I look outside, and the two ladies are talking to the cop that has just pulled up as the creep was rushing to my counter to get gas. The creepy guy must have seen the cop and decided it wasn't worth it. The cop looks over the guy as he takes off, then comes inside to talk to me. I explained to him his behavior and how my finger was on the call button as soon as he pulled up to get gas. The two ladies came back in to make sure I was alright, then left. The cop leaves, then comes back about 30 minutes later saying they picked the guy up. He explained that the guy was high on meth and was looking for someone to rob to fuel his habit more. He was also in possession of a hunting knife, and the cop figured he would have seriously harmed me to get what he wanted. To this day, I thank my lucky stars the cop pulled up when he did. Dear meth-head, let's never meet. Here in South Africa, we're in lockdown right now. I meant to travel for work to Santa Barbara, but since we're under lockdown, we can't go anywhere. So I am an entrepreneur with a tech startup here, and since I travel mostly, I make use of the reused co-working space for a hot desk or meeting room. It's quite flexible, there's always coffee and pretty girls coming in and out. Since the pandemic broke, however, I saw Regu's as a public or corporate office with many people coming in and out. Therefore, I was now stuck with no office. A buddy of mine told me he has an entire unused area at his house behind some offices. I would be alone. I'd have my own kitchen, lounge, TV, and bathroom. The catch: I would have to park on the road. So let me explain the way the road is. It's a wide, steepish road with a massive park and zoo on the left, with 3 entrances and parking, and houses and businesses on the right. I use this road quite often to go to Florida Road, a popular bar and food district. There's only street lights on the houses and businesses side, as there was a red line or no parking line alongside the road on the right and left. I had to park outside the park, so I parked in the first parking nearest to the building I was working at. It wasn't near, but I still had to work a few meters. I've attached the Google Street View here. The first parking space is where my car was parked on the left side of the road, and the office was a building way down the road on the right. This story takes place one night before the lockdown. I had a call with a company in Denver, Colorado, which I had to start at 6 p.m. SAST. It went well, and I decided to pack up and leave. I wore formal shoes and carried my laptop on my back. Being paranoid before I left, I looked on the CCTV before opening the gate. I didn't see anyone outside. I then proceeded to buzz myself out, lock up, and walk out. I don't know how, but in the time it took for me to walk from the building to the gate, a man appeared. He seemed drunk or high and just hanging around against the fence on the side of the road my car was, wearing a hooded sweatshirt with the hoodie down, torn brownish jeans and sneakers. I started walking and looked down, keeping track of him from the corner of my eye. Mine was the only car left, so I would assume he knew that was mine. As I got closer to my car, I noticed him starting to walk out toward me. I ignored. He was still walking diagonally, trying to cut me off. He then said, as he was maybe 5 meters away, "Let me help you with your bag, Lonnie." Now, I had a comfortable laptop backpack on. I was walking hands-free, and yet he asked to help me with my bag. In South Africa, car guards usually help you with your grocery bags and expect a 5 or 10 rand tip, but not this guy. This guy knew what I was doing, where I was going, and what I was carrying. To make matters worse, he had his left hand in his hoodie pocket and was now walking faster. It all went down in a split second. He suddenly lunged at me, but being a football player, I feigned left and went right. In that split second, I thought, if I ran to my car, which was still another 10 or 15 meters away, I would have surely not made it. I am fast, but fumbling with my keys, opening the door, getting in. I didn't seem confident, so I made the decision of jumping the fence into the now dark park. I made it with one leap over, albeit slower since my laptop backpack kept bouncing on my back. As soon as I hit the ground, I took my laptop bag off, held it in my hand, and ran. I looked for a dark spot to hide, so I ended up behind a massive tree in the park. There are a few of them, but it was the only one that didn't have a light hitting on it. I heard him running and slurring his words, and saying something like, "Just got in the bag." So my car was on the other side of a tennis court. If I could get to the tennis court, sneak around that, and run to my car, I would make it. But there was a lit open space between this tree and the tennis court, and he was running straight through that space. I watched the angle of him running and slowly rounded the tree to keep myself out of his line of sight. I honestly think him being high helped me immensely here, as he ran straight past and toward the other side of the park. When he was a distance away, which couldn't have been more than 20 meters, I made a break for it. Not being quiet now, I pushed away every branch and leaf, which he heard and turned around and saw. I burst around the tennis court. Stupid cuss, I should have just went back the way I came. I turned around and saw him yelling and running back at me, stumbling every now and then but picking up the pace and actually gaining on me. He had a knife, and it was out now. I puffed my way up the hill, opened the car, and jumped in. I locked the door with my laptop on my lap and started my car. When I looked back at the darkness, he was gone. He must have slunk back into the park when I was out of range. But where? I didn't wait to find out. I skidded and drove the hell out of there. I won't say that I won't work there again. I would, but maybe I'll Uber next time. So, creepy car guard, let's not meet again. This happened back in the early days of my childhood. I was maybe 12 years old at the time, living just outside of a major city in Australia. It was Christmas Eve, and unlike other countries who have their white Christmas, Australia's Christmas is smack bang in the middle of summer, so the last place you want to be is indoors, unless for some reason your house has an air conditioner, which 90% of households do not. Since it was Christmas time, school kids were on school holidays, so I invited a friend over and convinced my dad to drive us to a swimming pool complex. It's a pretty large place, with cheapish food and a huge water slide. So naturally we were pretty content staying the entire day there, spending our parents' money, and enjoying the cool water. It started getting later in the day, and we were told we had to go soon. We begged and pleaded to stay a little while longer, which led to a compromise that we would have to walk home if we didn't want to leave now, which we'd actually done a couple times before since the pool complex wasn't too far from my house. We agreed and said we would be home soon. It didn't actually take us too long before we wanted to leave since the sun was setting, and the pool was getting a bit too cold for comfort. We placed towels around our dripping bodies, waved goodbye to the staff at the entrance to the pool, and began the trek home. It usually didn't take us all too long to get home, but today my friend had the brilliant idea to take a shortcut, which in turn actually ended up taking us twice the amount of time to get anywhere near my house. He then joked saying at least we know for next time I called him an idiot, and said we better be home by dark, so we were now getting really close to my house. And it was in fact dark out by this time. My phone was flat, so I was trying to speed walk as fast as I could as I knew my parents would be wondering where we were. This shortcut we were on took us through some very dark and isolated streets. The suburban roads were narrow with street lights stretched apart, leaving long dim spaces of darkness. This was when we heard a car pull into our street. It was about 100 meters behind us. As it got closer to one of the street lights, we could see it was a rusty blue van, and wait for it, covered in Christmas decorations. We immediately laughed and exchanged peculiar glances. Our faces turned to a more perturbed nature when the van started slowing down as it approached us. We heard a husky voice call out to us. I didn't quite hear what he said, but he was clearly trying to get our attention, and he definitely had it. We finally got a look at this guy, and wow, the smell was the first thing to hit our senses. Try to imagine rotten bananas mixed with a heavy scent of alcohol. I don't know why I said bananas, but that's honestly what it smelled like. He was wearing a Santa hat and asked us if we'd been good this year. He then reached into the back of his van and pulled out a red box that had been wrapped like a Christmas present. He then gestured for us to come closer. We said we really needed to be going, as our parents would be wondering where we were. He then pulled the greasiest smile I've ever seen and offered to give us a lift to our house, and not to his torture chamber. This guy must have been pretty intoxicated to think this was gonna work on us. We said no thank you as our house was just a few blocks over and sped up our pace. We thought this would make the guy go away, but he slowly cruised on the right side of us, trying to persuade us to get into his van, saying he's got loads of presents in the back that he doesn't know what to do with. My friend started getting a little impatient and told the guy that we didn't want his greasy presents. This seemed to piss him off, and he told us we'd be on Santa's naughty list. He then drove 10 meters in front of us, swung his passenger door open, and said, "Look, the present is on the seat if you take it. You take it, I don't mind." We were now staying as far away from this guy's van as possible, staying off the path and onto people's lawns as we were walking. When we reached the point where we'd be walking past the van, I kid you not, we heard someone sneeze from the back of the van. My eyes locked onto his, and I pulled out my phone, my flat phone, and said I was calling the police. He spat on the ground in front of us and sped off down the road. We then bolted down a side route I knew took me directly to my house. Our adrenaline kept us fueled enough to run all the way home. When we got to my driveway, we agreed not to tell my parents, as they wouldn't let us go out at night again if they knew what happened. I kinda wanted to tell them, but my friend insisted that we should keep it quiet and never take that shortcut again. We never saw the man again, and hoped no one fell for those presents he was offering. So greasy Santa guy, let's not meet.